gate was 3.28 million. It was this was a total sellout. So today, a lot of times we'll announce sellouts, and you'll have, 50 single seats and things like that. We had 100 singles this morning. Not one single seat open for this event. It's the biggest event we've ever done here as far as attendance. 19,039 people here in the building tonight. The fight of the night was Holloway and Ortega, and the performance bonuses went to Santos and Holloway. Congratulations to them. They all won $50,000 each. Gav, you first? Who's first?
Do I need a mic?
Well, this guy's, you just,
Oh, yeah, the mic? Go ahead.
yeah, you stole the mic from him. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
I
gonna
respect
do
my
that.
Go ahead.
I'm a nice guy.
Friggin'
I wanted to ask you about Max and just where he raced. And Joe said an interesting thing in there. He said he might be the greatest featherweight of all time, and obviously Connor was there, and other great fighters were there. Where do you think Max rates right now among the all-time greats?
It's impossible not to talk about him amongst the all-time great now. And yes, he possibly could be the greatest ever. But let's not forget about, I forgot about him. How about that? Forget about Jose Aldo. Yeah, Jose Aldo. And, but yeah, he's definitely in the discussion. This guy hasn't lost in 5 years. This fight was huge. It's one of the sickest fights I've ever seen. The chin on Ortega is insane, and what a fight.
Could you ever have imagined that he would have taken, I think he landed over 50% of his shots, and taken Ortega apart that one-sidedly? I mean, he couldn't be stopped.
Well, I think there were a lot of questions coming into this fight. Obviously, no questions about how good Max Holloway was, but he had a couple tough times making the weight. We got him tested medically. We knew he was healthy. We knew he was safe. He went into this cut, seemed great through the whole thing, and obviously came in and performed tonight at another level. He looked unbelievable. Those were the questions I think that many people had about him tonight. How would he look after the weight cut and coming back, and the layoff and all that stuff? And wow.
And my last question for you, Dana, is when you look at him, he's a guy that has improved so much, and he was good to begin with.
And he continues to improve
Right.
every time he fights.
And he, not that he doesn't have submissions, but he's not one of those like Ortega is a great submission guy. He seems to be a stand-up fighter, and it's rare that you have a guy that's that good that doesn't have that other.
Well, he does.
I know he has it, but I'm saying he's not as
good.
dangerous the other way.
Because he's that good at submissions, he stays out of them, and he stays with with striking, because he's so much better than everybody when they're standing up. Why not? Go ahead, sir.
So Dana, you mentioned the sellout and the crowd was on fire. Is there anything you would change, like aside from the weather, which I understand?
The weather wasn't bad either. It was. I had a good week here. I've been here since Tuesday. This is the millionth time I've said I love this town. People. I said this before too. When the MAMAC thing was happening, they didn't want to come to Toronto, and I said, trust me, we got to go to Toronto. People don't realize what a big fight town Toronto really is, and that it's a very educated market. Almost 20,000 people in there tonight, on their feet, every round, going crazy, understand all the little, all the technical things that go on in these fights. And this is a fun place, man. Cool city, great hotels, restaurants, the whole deal. It's a great place. I love coming here and doing fights.
Hey Dana. Elaborating on Brian, he just kept coming. He took a lot of shots from Max, but he just kept coming on. How impressed were you with Brian's performance?
Blown away. I was blown away. I wanted them to stop that fight going into the 5th round. I was hoping that either the referee or the corner was going to stop that fight. The fight needed to be stopped. For all of us in here that have been in the fight game for a long time, that's what you call too tough for your own good. And I believe he could have done the 5th round. I believe he would have done the 5th round, but it should have never happened. That 5th round should have never happened, and I'm glad that it didn't. He's a young, talented guy, and I think going into that 5th round would have been very bad for him, health-wise. 4th round wasn't good for him health-wise, and definitely not the 5th round. So I commend the doctor here in Toronto for stopping that fight. He did a great job.
Last question, from his commendable performance, would you grant Brian a rematch with Max? That's too early to tell right now.
I honestly, listen, Max is a grown man and we need to talk, but I'd like to see Max go to 55 now. I think that, the guy's 27 going on 28 years old. He's in the prime of his life, never looked better, continues to improve with every single fight that he's in. And I think he's done everything he can do at 45. Why keep cutting that weight? And I think there's some big things for him at 55.
You kind of answered.
Let me get this guy and then
I was gonna
you're
say,
next. You're next. No, this guy, then you're next, yep.
Coming into the week, Renato Moicano was pegged to be the replacement if anything happened to either fighter.
Right.
But he came 1 pound overweight, didn't cut the weight. Does he still deserve the title shot according to you?
Yeah, Moicano is definitely, that's why we had him here. That guy's incredible. Actually, it's funny, I was on the treadmill today, and on TSN, they had the Ortega-Moicano fight on, and I watched that fight again, and that's another crazy fight. Really good. Moicano is the man, he's in the mix, and we'll see how this thing plays out.
Thank you.
Go ahead, so
Sorry.
take the mic.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, going back to what you said about Holloway and suggesting he moves up to 155, but how much influence do you have over that decision, or is that
A
something
lot.
you can only can you
A
elaborate
lot
on
of
that?
influence.
Hi, Dana over here.
Yeah.
Speaking of his plans at 155, any interest in running back the Holloway Nurmagomedov, booking that almost happened in 223?
Yeah, listen, I'd like to see him go to 55. You go to 50, if Holloway goes to 55, everybody in the top 5 is a fun fight for him.
And I want to talk about Joanna as well. She said she needs to take some time to think, obviously, and talk to you in the UFC, of course, about what's next. But do you have a particular idea as far as, whether you'd like to see her stay at 125 or go down to 115 as she wants to?
Yeah. I love her. She's such a great fighter and such a good person. And I consider her a friend. I want her to take some time off, go spend some time with her family, and then we'll get together and we'll talk about it. But I'd like to see her stay at 15. Yeah. Huh? 15.
Dana, just to follow up on Max going up, how does that conversation go for him? Because I imagine, he would have to be giving up his belt. I'm sure there's perks that come along with that pay-per-view, points, all that kind of stuff.
We'll
So,
figure that out.
yeah, so, but for him, I'm sure he wants to, either go in there wanting the chance to be a champion right away, those kind of things, right?
Yeah, I hear you, but that's not the case at 55 right now because of what's going on. So we got to find out what happens on Monday, and then I can figure out what's going on with that entire division. It's tough when the top 2 guys in the world are both going in for disciplinary stuff, and so we'll see how this thing plays out, and then we'll go from there. But any fights right now are good for Max, and this fight actually was trending really well on pay-per-view tonight too. So obviously we'll have to figure that out with him.
Yeah, Tony Ferguson actually tweeted that he'd like to fight Max if the Habib fight doesn't work out.
I love that. I love that shit. Right on, Tony.
And if Max does leave the division, I mean,
Did Tyrone Woodley call? Did he send any text? No?
I haven't seen it.
I was hoping he might.
But, if Max does go up, where's that leave featherweight? Because you already have this, Connor was the champion and he vacated, moved up. Max kind of rebuilt the championship scene there, went on this run, and then you'd kind of be taking that champion out of the division again and have to rebuild. Is that something that's just part of the process?
Yeah, it happens. It happens. I want what's right for Max. You know what I mean? What's right for Max might not necessarily be what's right for the division, but we'll figure that out. I think that after his last issues, I think it would be better for him physically and every other way to move up to 55 pounds. He has not said one word to me, so we'll see how he feels about that. He and I will talk about it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I imagine from his perspective, he said the cut went well, he performed well, he landed the most strikes ever
Looked
in
incredible.
the UFC fight.
He looked better than he's ever looked. Tonight was his greatest performance, and I thought he looked unbelievable against Aldo. So, I agree.
Do you have an official health update on Brian? I imagine he was transported.
Both these guys, Holloway too, I'm going to make sure that they get everything twice.
And just last thing, any other performance that stood out to you? Obviously, Thiago Marta Santos was great.
Santos.
Gunnar Nelson came back. Anyone who
Gunnar was
really
great.
impressed
That
you
was a
tonight?
great fight too. Yeah, I mean, it was a great card. There were a lot of great fights tonight. Yeah, everybody looked good. I love the whole. Yeah, we definitely opened the pay-per-view right. That Manuel Santos fight was incredible. Those guys had fight of the night in the bag until the main event happened. You know, incredible fight. Huh? Yeah, great picture too.
Dana over
I
here.
think that was everybody's face during that fight.
Dana right here.
Yeah.
You mentioned the card was trending really well on social
No,
media. Obviously, Canada's a great market. We've heard some rumblings next year about Quebec City, potentially Vancouver. Any light you can shed on Canadian dates for next year?
I don't know off the top of my head, but you know, we just announced tonight that we did another multi-year deal with TSN, which I'm very pumped up about, and so it's all good. You know, we'll be back.
On that note, actually, you know, with the ESPN Plus happening in the States, how does that affect Canadians with the TV deal? Is it just going to be on TSN, all the
Yeah,
content? Okay.
yeah. We're doing the same thing with TSN. We got prelims, pay-per-view prelims. We got fight nights. My Contender series is going to be on TSN. Good stuff.
That's great. And you talked
Thank
about
you.
Max moving up, and so that would leave a void at featherweight. Is the idea to do Aldo and Moicano next for maybe a vacant title?
I don't know. Again, I haven't even talked to Max yet about any of this stuff. You know, I was out there doing interviews saying I want him at 55, and he's standing 3 feet away from me, and he didn't yell, "Yeah, I want to go to 55." So he
But
probably doesn't
hypothetically,
want to go to 55. I
Would that
imagine.
make the most sense, though, hypothetically, just because Moicano was the backup and Aldo, I mean, he's looked great in his last fight.
Some things that make sense don't necessarily work all the time, so I don't even try to play this game anymore. I don't even try to think about what's next until we get there.
And one more thing on titles. Any update on the welterweight title fight? What's happening with that? With you know, because I know the idea was to do Woodley and Covington. What's the latest on that?
Nothing. So I told everybody yesterday I go home tonight, right now. I'm going home after this, and then I'll get this stuff figured out. I go back on the road on Wednesday, so I got 2 days to get my shit together. John?
Yeah. Sorry, working the camera back here tonight.
Buddy?
Yeah, hey, just one question. Holloway, he doesn't like talking about Conor very much, but they have a history. If he moves up to 155, does running that fight back, I know we got to wait for the NSAC thing to work out, but does running that fight back make sense to you?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of fights for him at that weight. You know, I think everybody in the top 5 is an interesting, exciting fight for Holloway. So that's why I say that I think there's bigger and better things for him at 55 pounds. See if he agrees.
Hey Dana. Nick Diaz or Masvidal, is that officially on? Is that happening?
Yeah, so somebody was just telling me earlier that we didn't announce that. Is that true? We didn't announce it, or I don't. As far as I know, sitting right here right now, that fight's on. Yeah, as far as I know, that fight is on.
Okay.
Unless something happened while I've been here since Tuesday. Unless something happened since Tuesday, which is very possible, it's on.
And speaking of his brother Nate, I know that he was supposed to fight on the MSG card last month, and Dustin kind of was forced out of that fight. Any update on working with Nate Diaz to bring him back to a fight soon?
No, we got nothing going on with Nate. Good. Thanks, Toronto. Appreciate it. Have a good night.